And the Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Gabriel Boric Font, President of the Republic of Chile. I request the protocol to escort His Excellency. On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome His Excellency Gabriel Boric Font, President of the Republic of Chile, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much. President, Secretary General, distinguished heads of state and government, distinguished guests. For me, it is an honor to be able to be with you at this General Assembly for the first time today. I come from Chile, a beautiful country located in the extreme south of the Americas, between the Andes mountain range, the backbone of the continent, and the majestic, breathtaking Pacific Ocean. A country with a diverse geography and stunning landscapes, where, side by side, we have the clearest skies and the stormiest seas, the driest desert, alongside cities made of rain. The people of Chile, as you may know, is hardworking and caring. Thanks to our efforts in just over 2 centuries, we have gone from being the poorest colony of Spain on the continent to a thriving, independent, free, sovereign country. A country with enormous opportunities, today at the gates of comprehensive development, and we are working for this development to be for all, not just for a few. A country that has lithium for energy, the means of providing clean energies to the world, a country with long coasts and protected marine areas to care for the environment, with top-level universities to create and share knowledge. I have come to tell you, dear colleagues, that Chile needs the world. The world needs Chile too. But as you are aware, and as has been clear in the speeches that went before my own, we live in an era of uncertainty and shocks. It is clear that no country here is isolated from or immune to global shocks or events, and Chile is no exception. Thus, Russia's unfair war of aggression on Ukraine, a nation to which we express our solidarity, pushed up fuel prices and led to shortages of grain and fertilizer, with a strong impact on our economy, and certainly of many of your countries as well. Also, although it is often hard to discuss this, the trade war between the United States and China that began under the Trump administration in 2018 and the pandemic destabilized the global economy, affecting both our and your economies. On another level, the humanitarian crisis in Venezuela, which is a product of its extended political crisis, has generated an unprecedented flow of migration in our region and in our country, putting enormous pressure on our society and institutions. Lastly, as many of you are experiencing, the climate crisis is particularly affecting our continent, the Americas, especially the Caribbean. It also affects the life systems of our people. Chile meets 7 of the 9 United Nations vulnerability criteria: low-level coasts, arid and semi-arid areas, forests, propension to natural disasters, drought, floods, mountain ecosystems, and urban areas. But our country, as many of yours, many of the global south, produces and is responsible for a minimum of greenhouse gas emissions. In our case, it's only 0.24%, while the largest economies of the G20, as the Secretary General has just mentioned, produce 80% of greenhouse gases. It is clear nowadays that no country, large or small, humble or powerful, can save itself on its own. As I was preparing this speech, I was thinking how the many interesting speeches telling about the reality of each country could be contributed to from Chile with its small part in building the best possible world. And with the awareness that it is not my place to teach anybody about the problems in the world, I thought that telling you about our recent experience as a country could be useful to those who are interested to derive their own lessons. Chile is currently experiencing an intense political process. Almost 3 years ago, we faced a major political and social crisis. During those days, a great majority of Chilean people peacefully expressed their discontent with inequality and abuse, their pain at the long waits to receive public health care, their frustration at the million-dollar debts incurred as students, their refusal to accept miserly pensions that are a mere pittance after long years of work. In a few months, we will celebrate 50 years since President Salvador Allende, who spoke to this very assembly, from this very podium, about the major social and political changes that Chile was going through at a time. Chile is a country that has, for a long time, sought the path towards dignity. And although during the democratic governments of the past 30 years, there was a remarkable decrease in poverty and progress on the social front, it is undeniable that the Chilean development model has kept a high concentration of wealth, leading us to be, and this is painful, one of the most unequal countries in the world. This inequality, as is the case in many developing nations, has obstructed our path towards development. Not only that, it is an inherent threat to democracy because it breaks society apart, it destroys social cohesion, and it therefore hampers understanding and building a freer, more fair future together. The social upheaval Chile experienced in 2019 left many observers puzzled, wondering what was happening in our country. And it even left many observers and stakeholders of Chilean life astonished. And the fact is that many were struck by the fact that a country that had such high indices of economic growth and human development, showing major improvements in the quality of life of its population, should have faced such a deep crisis. But what happened to my country is no coincidence. It was a result of innumerable episodes of pain and postponement. which simmered and then struck at the very heart of our society. And I want to point out that this can happen in your countries as well. That is why I invite you to plan ahead in the search for greater social justice, to better distribute wealth and power. This should go hand in hand with sustainable growth. And I am deeply convinced that it can be shared and it is possible. Indeed, it is urgent. Unfortunately, I have to say this because we cannot only come to talk about the good things that are happening. This discontent also expresses itself through major episodes of violence, such as the unacceptable burning of subway stations and vandalizing civic buildings. And we also witnessed an uncontrolled level of repression, which led to deaths, injuries, and over 400 people who were victims of eye injuries, which was a result of state action, which is, from the point of view of our government and of international organizations, a severe violation of human rights, which must be repaired. It must be made up for. This long history of injustice found its voice in October of 2019. But also, and this is a good thing about it, the long history of civil mobilization and social struggle, which made it possible to return to democracy and the return of Democrats, as President Aylwin said at the end of the past century, was the same struggle which made it possible at the beginning of the 20th century to make progress in rights for workers. Present at the peaceful demonstrations of 2019 were the women of the previous century who made progress in gaining the right to vote, the workers who earned the right to leave, and the settlers who fought for decent housing. All of these memories and social struggles manifested themselves there. The protection of human rights anywhere by any regime, decent work, social protection, and the struggle against climate change are universal demands which are the focus of our common agenda, led by the Secretary General of this organization, Antonio Guterres, and of the Sustainable Development Goals. These are the values behind this deep unrest: equality, justice, and freedom. Distinguished leaders of the world, the way forward to the peaceful, democratic resolution of the crisis our country experienced was an agreement between the major political forces, which made it possible to draw up a roadmap towards drafting a new constitution, one which made it possible to establish the basis of a new social contract, making a democratic response possible to the demands of the citizens. This road opened by Chilean society through protest and social struggle, and then politically channeled by the various institutions, was expressed through plebiscite in October 2019, where 80% of voters spoke in favor of a new written constitution by a specially elected body to do so. This is a major challenge. It consists of achieving, as never before in history, a democratic constitution written with citizen participation of indigenous peoples, and gender parity, a constitution for everybody, written by everybody. A few weeks ago, the work of the Constitutional Convention was subjected to consultation through a plebiscite in which there was a massive participation, 85%. But this led to a clear rejection of the proposal, 62 against 38%. Thus, today we are seeking new formulas to build the meeting place for all Chileans. My personal option in this plebiscite was to approve the proposal for a new constitution, but the result was the opposite. Some want to see the result of the plebiscite as a defeat for the government. And with great humility, I wish to tell you today that a government can never feel defeated when the people speak. In a democracy, the word popular is sovereign and is a guide for any government. Why am I telling you about this? Because, unlike in the past, when differences in Chile were settled through blood and fire, today Chileans have agreed to face our challenges in a democratic fashion. And I'm telling you about this because I'm certain that one of the major challenges for humanity today is that of building democracies that really talk to and listen to citizens. Those who are here at this assembly have the duty of improving our democracies. During the long days of citizen mobilization, the word dignity was often heard. The Chilean people have just expressed giving us a lesson in democracy, which we are learning. Chile has called on its democracy and political actors to rise to the challenges that we have today, and we must meet their expectations. As a government, we have received the results of the recent plebiscite with open eyes and hearts. We want to hear what the people is telling us. We trust their opinions, we trust their will, and there are things I want to share very quickly with you. The results are the expression of a citizenry that calls for change without putting its current achievements at risk. Citizens who want a better future built without creating new insecurities, a future of change with stability. As a young person who was on the street protesting not very long ago, I can tell you that representing unrest is a lot easier than producing solutions. Those of us devoted to the demanding work of politics easily confuse our success as spokespeople for citizen unease with our real ability to build a better future. The plebiscite results in Chile have taught us to be humble. Democracy must be humble. They made us realize that building the Chile we dream of, in building the Chile we dream of, no given sector has a recipe. Rather, it is a dish made up of the best each one of us has to contribute. This is how we govern in the 21st century, mobilizing capacity and skill in our societies, not trying to substitute them. As a president of Chile, I am convinced that very soon Chile will have a constitution that will satisfy us and make us proud, one built in democracy that brings together the contributions of all sectors of society, able to reflect our aspirations of justice and liberty. Distinguished delegates, based on the humble history of my country, I can tell you with deep conviction that the path to face the problems affecting our societies is paved with more democracy, not less, with incentives for participation, not restrictions, with dialogue and not censorship, and above all, with respect for those who think differently, with inclusion of their points of view, and understanding that having diverse opinions does not make us enemies. I reject the abyss that some try to open when facing the legitimate diversity of opinion. And from Chile, we declare our will of building bridges across those gaps that make it difficult for us to meet as diverse societies. This is what we wish to share as a small country with the nations of the world. Deepening democracy is a permanent exercise where we must persevere and learn from the experience of others. Thus, in conclusion, I invite you to work together to strengthen democracy in all spaces, in each of our countries, and in the relationship between countries. We need a new Latin America. We need more work together from the Global South. We need a modernized United Nations where we all set ourselves the same objectives. We commit ourselves from multilateralism to justice and peace anywhere and everywhere, to take the actions needed, not only statements, to stop the unfair war of Russia on Ukraine and put an end to all the abuse of the powerful anywhere in the world, to mobilize our efforts to stop violence against women, whether it be in Iran, in memory of Mahsa Amini, who died at the hands of the police this week, or anywhere in the world. To not normalize ongoing violations of the human rights of the Palestinian people, to uphold international law and the resolutions which this very assembly takes year after year, leading to its right, to its inalienable right to establish its own free sovereign state, as well as guaranteeing Israel's legitimate right to live within safe and internationally recognized borders, to continue working to contribute to the release of political prisoners in Nicaragua, and so nowhere in the world having ideas different from the current government can lead to persecution or violations of human rights. Distinguished members of this assembly, the whole world is calling for change. New generations have the right, like those before us, and also the responsibility to think and realize a different future. The citizens suffering the consequences of societies built on segregation and abuse call for their rights and for a safe life. This is a world that can only be achieved through more democracy, and this is a call which we must all respond to today. And in Chile, we are willing to cooperate anywhere in the world to that end. Thank you very much.